Does it say recording?
That's good.
Does it, then if it says stop, then we're good.
So, that's for
Oh,
Claudia.
There you go.
Oh, thanks.
So you want to call the meeting to order?
Okay, so I'm gonna call the meeting to order, and should we just name who's here?
Yes.
Okay. John McParlin?
Mary Maslowski,
Claudia Williams.
Okay,
and
great.
it's the meeting of,
This is the meeting of the Housing Committee, June 27th, 5:30.
Do you want me to take minutes?
somebody will take it
I
from
got
the,
it. Oh, somebody takes them?
or somebody can, or if you're going to do the minutes, yeah, absolutely. But sometimes we can have people that do them.
Like, that are watching this or something?
They'll
Oh.
watch it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is new to me, so I'm like.
Nope.
I
Totally
actually
fine.
didn't know that either. I thought we had to have someone in the room
So
taking it.
sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, so.
Okay. So I just made up this little agenda because we have not met for, Mayor,
A year and a half.
okay?
So one thing that we need to put on the agenda for the next
It's
is,
already on there because she called me as to
The-
where, the location.
right, but also the reorganization. So we have to vote chairperson
Okay,
and vice chairperson. So we'll do that on the next meeting. right?
okay, great. So we called to order. My whole goal was just to get a meeting together of some kind
Yep.
and some people here. And kind of just discuss parameters on where we are and what we want to go do forward. And if anyone has any suggestions, that's the reason why we're here. So I didn't expect to get a lot accomplished. I just wanted everyone to meet everybody and then,
We need to start back.
yeah,
We need to start so that we are reorganized
Right.
and we're starting.
right.
So we typically have always met on the first Monday of the month.
Which seems to fit you.
Typically, my issue is that I have meetings on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays.
No, I like the Monday though. I like the Monday.
So I have planning board on most, every other Tuesday. I have, you and I both have CPC on Thursdays.
Yeah,
And then I have historic on some Wednesdays, so.
And who are the?
Monday works.
Cindy and somebody else?
City Mall, and then Claudia, and then was one more, right?
There should be 5.
Yeah, there was 5. There's one more.
I just can't remember.
I thought it was a
Cynthia.
Cynthia.
They couldn't do Monday, but I don't know who that was.
Okay.
But I,
Is Monday's good for you, by the way? Okay. I do think that Cindy sent me a text and saying that she was not going to be able to make this meeting. But, so for the last several years, we really haven't had a tasking.
okay,
We report to the selectmen, particularly Mary Anderson is our representative right now.
okay.
And whenever we have a meeting, I would just brief back to her what we discussed and what we're trying to do. And
And really what used to happen was that we would have a meeting, and before the housing trust was started, there would be issues that we would comment on, like, Habitat for Humanity came on board before the housing trust got started. So we would comment back on their CPC application and things like that.
right,
Or we could comment to planning board or the zoning board of appeals on some of those issues. But once the housing trust came into being, there really wasn't much for us to do or to comment on. And now that the trust is really getting up and going, we need to work together with them.
Right.
So one thing that I think we should also talk about
you
is,
should also tell her what we did, you and I.
yeah, well, that's exactly what I was getting to. So,
And I used to be on the housing committee, like way back when here.
Okay.
And then I stopped when my daughter was,
okay.
young.
Awesome.
So it was before the housing trust, so yeah, and Cindy and I worked together on some of the.
So were you on when Julie Eldridge was on?
Yeah.
Too? Okay.
Yeah,
So I think you and I probably just missed each other then.
Probably,
I
yeah.
probably came on when you came off.
yeah, there was a different chair, I can't remember his name.
It was Art Bowden?
Yes,
Yes.
so.
So-
Yeah,
So part of the housing trust and part of the bylaw says that they're supposed to meet, that the housing trust and our committee are supposed to meet annually to set an agenda a housing agenda to present to the Board of Selectmen. So we tried to do that a couple of months ago.
We did.
We didn't get a quorum on our side. It was Joe and I, and we needed a third person,
Oh.
and we didn't get the third person to show up.
Okay.
So we still, the trust still met, and we talked about some issues, us not at a formal committee level, but them at the formal trust level. So I would think it's probably appropriate for us to reach out to them and say, we're now met back we've
Yeah.
met back as a committee again. We would be open to rescheduling that
Right.
annual meeting so that we could sit and discuss
That
issues.
meeting, we talked, we did brief before that board, that trust, the selectmen, that was a different one, remember that one? With the-
We did the selectmen too,
The
yes.
selectmen was better because we told them basically we've not had a role and we feel we can have a role. I've done a lot of research. Mary already knows a lot of this already, the history of basically the 3 towns around us all have has housing committees, all have very strong roles in some capacity. And more importantly, they have we're about to have is a housing advocate. So.
They're hiring that person now?
Here.
Nice.
Yeah, so that person is gonna interact with, mostly, I don't see them interacting with the housing trust that much, but have something to do with it, but that's definitely with us and the housing, trust. And they're gonna report to the, assistant town manager.
All right,
Yep, to Meg.
to Megan.
So that gives he or her a little autonomy, you know, and not reporting to one of us.
Right.
Right? So, but overall, I think Mary and I, we see our role as being the voice of what's going on with housing. For example, I always wanted to, at least once a year, or once every 6 months, off this season right now, have a meeting or two in the community center and really publicize it and ask for everyone of the town to come and tell us what you want. That would be a good start.
Yep.
And because I certainly, people have great ideas,
Yeah.
you know? And there's just so much that can be done.
Well, it's also, we could take a role in doing some of the education piece too.
That piece too.
So, and I think some communities use their housing committee as the kind of marketing entity that helps
agree.
market the lotteries and the everything else. And we're not quite at that stage yet, but we'll get there soon because
Right.
they're working on projects. So now that they've started working on projects, I think there'll be more for us to do.
Mary, I have a question for you, and maybe you too, Clay, is like, how can you get a sense of, everyone says there's a housing need in the Lower Cape and the Cape in general, so that's easy to say, but how can you get a more factoid sense of that? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there some?
So you can do a survey, like why can't you do like a Survey Monkey survey and
That's what I'm asking.
and reach out to like so each of the communities should have, you know how you have the reverse 911 calls.
Yeah.
So people sign up for different newsletters. So you could start by first publicizing a news alert for housing matters, if there isn't one already, and then you can try and do a survey to that piece.
Yeah, we did, I actually did one in Chatham, so I was on their committee when they first started, before we moved to Harwich, and we attached it to the census, they let us do
Okay,
that.
yep.
Which was nice, cause then they do the census,
wow.
and then we did a quick, like, do you need housing, what kind of housing do you need, what's your income
Right.
range, you know, whatever, just
yep.
some basic questions, but I wonder if on the Cape Cod Commission, I feel like they do,
They do some.
they do numbers, I don't know if
Yeah.
they do need, they may do like what exists
Right,
versus what
right,
the need
right.
is. But there might be
But that's
something already done.
That's a good idea with an attachment to the census. The issue is Harwich will start planning for the census come November, December. That's when they'll start getting the emails and the quotes
Okay.
for a January census. So you would want to be ahead of the game, and I would expect.
Oh, we could be attached to that?
I would expect you'd probably need to request the money
Yeah.
to be able to pay for, I'm sorry if that's
Right.
mine somewhere. to pay for a portion of, what the add-on is, maybe, for the,
Can we get that money from CPC, man?
I don't know that you could get money for
Survey,
the survey.
within the town kind of thing?
Right, but, we could certainly ask administration if there's a way, for us to add on to, and have to ask the town clerk as well, if we could add an insert into the census, and then see what the added insert cost.
So I have to give you
Is-
the Joe McFarland survey. Two of my dear friends have houses separate from their house, little houses. One's 800 square feet, the other one is 450 square feet.
Has to be under 9.
No, I'm not going that. I'm not going that
Okay.
road. They rented them. Okay? The 450 went for 1650. The 800 went for, she only rented it for like 1400 because she wanted to know the person, right?
Yeah.
And they're comfortable. They each had over 95 interviews just for those two.
Crazy.
So I know there's a need, but I love the actual factual will tell us a lot too,
I think
Even
you,
Habitat may, like Beth
Yeah.
Wade,
Yeah.
she and I are gonna have lunch next week, but like there's definitely research on who needs, like how many
Right.
need rent year round versus
right.
ownership, like what are the preferences?
I would think they would know some of that at the housing authority too, right?
Yeah, I think that the
You know?
data exists, I just don't, I mean, I think if.
I talked to Tracy Cannon a couple of times now, and she gave me just a report of how many units we have compared to Chatham. It's like night and day
Yeah.
right now, so
Meaning we have more or less?
we
Less.
have much less.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Much less.
Oh, okay.
But
For
also-
rentals or just any kind of affordable housing?
Any kind of affordable housing,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Does Chatham have federal?
They do.
Yeah, and see, we
She
don't
actually
have.
gets paid by two different pots of money.
So I know that. I know because she gets paid. Well, she gets part from Harwich, part from Chatham,
Yes,
and does both. But we kind of miss out on some of that because we don't have federal senior housing, and we don't have.
and because
You
of
know.
why?
We don't.
Oh.
We just never built it. So
Oh,
like I'm sure.
that's why her number's so high, because that's, a lot of it is federal,
So I'm sure in Braintree, I'm sure you had senior housing,
a lot.
right?
Yeah.
So that senior housing was all federal,
Yeah.
that was run by run by the housing authorities,
Right.
and those contribute to
Yeah,
your affordability numbers because they're paying on a need base when they get to that age.
yeah,
Cindy may know too.
I was
mean,
just gonna say, yeah.
I think if she's able to come next time, we could start picking
Yep.
her brain too,
Yeah.
just to see what direction to go in.
Because she also knows what the numbers are too, like what the rentals,
and the other,
80%, under 80% of the median or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
exactly.
they also have, I looked up so my towns are Brewster, Yarmouth, Chatham, that I researched a little bit about. They also all have, housing committee, all have their own, Facebook page. And some of them have a Twitter page, but it's not used at all. But all three of them have a Facebook page, and it's pretty interactive.
Mhm.
And it just putting out information about anything about housing.
My only
Yeah.
comment about your Facebook page
Please do.
is that it has to be tied to the town, and you have to know that the town is backing up all of that
Data,
information, because that is a public record and would be
sure.
producible. So it's just a matter of making sure that that's a piece of it when you
But
start
it is doable, don't you think?
It is, it's just can be a nightmare when it comes to public records laws,
Okay,
because each one of those posts becomes a public record, right?
yeah,
That whole feed is a public record and has to be saved and backed up
okay,
and stored. It's not like you going on your private one
yeah,
and just clicking into it. So that's the only piece that I caution when everybody talks about social media.
yeah,
The web page we have a web page under our Civic Plus web page, then that's getting backed up already and is getting dealt with.
Well, I talk a lot to Jill Scalise, who's been in the housing, she's not I forget what they call her, she's the housing advocate in Brewster.
Okay.
And she's constantly sending out information on housing. She manages that page, and always having informational sessions in the town, in
Yeah.
the community center. So that person is kind of just really key to working for both of us, I think.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, so that's what our advocate's gonna do?
Yeah. I see, I think Mary agrees with me. I see the housing trust, their real job is to find the properties, buy the properties, and then, work together with everybody.
Well, I think they're also there to figure out what the projects should be, whether they're
Yes.
rental projects, whether they're sale projects, whether, and making kind of those decisions and being able to act because they have money and they don't have to wait
Right.
for a town meeting to actually,
Right,
buy
that's what we
something
used to
or
have to decide.
right.
Was what are we gonna get and how we,
Right.
yeah, so that makes sense.
So, I do think the housing advocate, like the difference that I think will be great is like when they first went to CPC over having a housing coordinator, I think was what they originally called
That's
it.
what it was called, yeah.
The original idea was that Brewster and Chatham and Harwich would go in together and would have a full-time person. And I think there was a communication disconnect somewhere along the way. So then they ended up reaching out to CDP to come in and do the kind of work on a contract basis.
Right.
And for me, the telling tale was I was working in the clerk's office at the time, and the then town administrator had told us to keep their appointment book. So if people wanted to come in and schedule an appointment, we were scheduling an appointment with the housing coordinator from CDP. And I can tell you in the time that I was in the clerk's office downstairs, I definitely talked to one person, maybe two, in the
Right.
span of 2 years.
Yeah.
So just nobody was coming and nobody was asking those questions and nobody was looking.
So that was a little hiccup. 'Cause
Well, nobody was looking for
basically-
that person, and the point was it should be available for other housing issues, just not the trust. And there was just no communication
Right.
that way. So
Right.
now, if you have a
I'm trying to
coordinator,
see-
hopefully you will.
I think
Okay.
you're right, yeah.
So the coordinator's not coming from CDP, it's just
No.
an external hire?
Yeah.
It's
Actual employee of the
It's
town.
going to be an employee.
Okay,
So
and will they go through like the CDP housing training and all that stuff, or is it just separate now?
I think
Just
they'll
talking
do
about
whatever
the
administration
facts.
asks them to do.
Yeah.
So because they're going to report to administration. I'm sure it's going to either be a personnel bylaw employee, I would suspect, and then we'll coordinate all things and advocate all things housing, and
There's
we'll
great
be
training out there, it's not just
Yeah.
not CDP, like, I've gone to several Mass Housing
yeah they do some good
seminars,
ones.
they have 2-day things up in Western Mass,
Oh, cool,
yeah, and they go through everything,
that's great.
yeah, really, really great information. But,
It'd be interesting to talk to it seems like the CDP and HAC are now connected, is Lower Cape Housing connected? I don't know if Harwich Housing's you know what I mean, like the outside, and Habitat, they were trying to do something, so there
Yep.
was an actual website that was gonna be tied into a company that did rentals, but it was for affordable year-round, they were gonna try and use their technology, it just seems like the same thing still exists, which is,
yeah,
why are we all reinventing the wheel?
The wheel,
no,
exactly.
I think the difference between CDP and HAC is, I know the woman that runs it, she's so sharp, and I've met her several times. If you brought her a project, for example, from here, she actually would wanna help you. Like, she would actually, try and find money, grant money, or to put someone on it with a housing advocate, and cause all she wants to do is get housing accomplished in the Lower Cape. And, not just in Hyannis, she's all over the place.
Yeah,
And, she's a great help.
yeah.
Um,
Have we met with like other housing committees to just see like what they're doing, or if they wanna work together, or?
I haven't, not lately, but I'd like to take that on and pursue that a little bit more, just to see,
Yeah.
I mean,
feel like people don't know still, like, it's weird, like, even, I don't know, and I was in housing, but friends would be like, I don't know what to do, and I'm like, call every housing authority in
Right.
every town and get yourself on a list, and then they come back and they're like, I called all of them, they said there's nothing right now, so there's no list. I'm like,
Right.
wait, what?
There's gotta
You
be
know?
a list somewhere,
So
right?
it's like, even just like some basic, like, I don't know how to answer that question, so I'm
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
okay, my goal on this committee is to be able to answer that question.
Right.
Cause I can, and that's
You know.
bad,
Right,
right? So
right.
even though these people are saying, you know, they're doing all this stuff and they have all these community things and Brewster's doing Facebook and blah, 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 the reality is that regular people that I know that
Right.
live here year
Still
round
don't know
have
where to go.
absolutely no idea how to do this, so I
Yep.
feel like if there's any way we can contribute to making that simple,
Yeah,
like blasting out, you know, talk to Tim at the Chronicle and be like, hey, will you run some, you know, PR ads for us that
Mhm.
just says, you know, can we talk to some organizations and say, can we have a one-stop shop that says, here's a map, click on the town, this'll tell you what to do, and then there's a, you know, like I
Mhm.
literally sent a link to a friend of mine today, I'm like, I don't know how this works, but here's some links, like,
Right.
Yep.
click on the links and then.
That's a great idea.
that's a good idea.
I
Like a
just-
one-stop place to find,
Yeah.
just put your zip code in, or your
Like
town
just
in.
anything, cause I know, like, friends are like, well, I can be on Orleans, I'm like, you can be anywhere you want. Like,
Right, right.
Mashpee, Orleans,
Right.
like, but you have to find the place, then you have to find out if you're eligible, like,
Mm-hmm.
couldn't, you know, I don't, again, I'm not about reinventing the wheel, but I'm like, can you enter, like, I make 48,000 a year, I'm single, and
Right.
then they populate.
Yeah.
Right.
You would qualify for these. Like, my friend actually has 2 Habitat houses going across from her, and I'm like, oh my God, you're literally across the street looking for housing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
just people don't know.
Yeah.
No, and then you still fight with the NIMBY situation, like, we
Yeah,
talked about doing rentals across the street here at the Royal, and
Yeah,
the planning board hearing was brutal,
yeah.
brutal.
Is that the, so I think that'll be interesting for me, is trying to understand our charge versus the trust. Like, as our charge is obviously to try and help people be educated on what affordable
Right.
housing is and is not. We did a brochure when I was there that we
Right.
like put together. It was like a little 3-folder and like had some families,
Mhm.
had some picture, you know, like the basic stuff that
Yep.
you do.
So we had, probably before Joe started, we were back and forth with the selectmen over what our charge should be,
right.
so that we would have some sense of
Yeah.
what they wanted from
Meeting
us. Now that,
charter or whatever that is.
now that the, you know, housing trust, affordable housing trust was getting established and was gonna be in place. So now what do you want us to do? So I think maybe having that joint meeting with the trust and putting together kind of a charge for what we think we need, you know,
Right.
what we think our annual plan should be
Right.
jointly with the trust, then I think that might go a long way to opening up the communication and figuring out where to go next.
Well, it also, I mean, it's my big fat opinion, right, so I don't know anything about anything, but it seems like that has to come from the selectmen.
It does.
So we need them to say, this is what you're supposed to do, and this is what you're supposed to do, and this, and then we can figure out how to work
It
together.
does,
Agreed.
it does need a clear delineation, because
Yeah,
they think there are certain things that they should do, and it's the selectmen that have to tell us.
yeah.
Right.
So how do we get that?
So I think that's just a request of administration. Say, you know, one, we have a liaison, so is Mary still our liaison?
Yeah, she just got reappointed.
So if we reach out to Mary and tell her that we're looking for looking for clarification on what our charge should be, and that we want to try and set up that joint meeting again to kind of work on the annual plan
Yeah.
like we had tried before, but now that we're back in business,
Right.
can we try
Right,
and
Yeah,
do that
but
again?
they have to come with the charter, I mean, they have to
Right.
come with that before we start, cause then it's
Well,
us selling ourselves.
I think they're gonna want some suggestions from us, because I talked to Dawn about this a year, half.
So it's two things. There's one thing is the charge, but there's also the plan. We're charged with telling the selectmen what jointly the trust and the housing committee think the annual plan should be for
Should be.
housing.
Right.
So that's kind of
Well,
the
we
way the
can-
bylaw
yes,
is set up.
If we have an understand of what our charge is.
Yep.
If they say you are PR, education, marketing, then that's fine. Then it's like, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If the trust is, their charge is to acquire and develop affordable housing, great, then we can come together, but if they aren't, or if they're not able to say what that is yet, then that would have to
So
be
the
our
trust,
next.
the trust has the charge to do whatever they want to do,
Yes.
because the trust is autonomous,
It doesn't report to the selectmen?
does not report to the selectmen.
So.
They have they have full trust documents, town administrator is the chairperson, and there is a select, member of the select board on the trust,
Yeah.
but they're autonomous.
We
Well,
did
So-
talk,
not autonomous if the town administrator is their chairperson.
True, but still he's acting in his capacity as the chairperson of the trust at that point, as opposed to reporting to the selectmen, so.
Right.
He's
but-
involved, but he's still, but their trust documents tell them what they do and what they can't do, as opposed to the selectmen telling them what to do.
it's
Do you
actually
know
in
what I
some
mean?
bylaw, it's a very standard thing that the town manager is supposed to be in charge of that trust,
The
right?
state made a change
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
statute.
Right, but then we just need them to say what is that, like, what do you want
We
us
need them to
do?
tell us what they want us to do and
Yeah.
how they want us to
Yeah,
interact.
and
We did-
obviously
we did
we
bring
can
up
come with
Mar-
ideas, but it's pretty basic, right? We can
Yeah.
pull any housing
Yeah,
committee's charter and be like, here, it's basically PR and education, or
Right.
whatever.
mhm.
That was part of what I was gonna do. I tried, for those 3 towns, see what the committee actually does, you know?
Right.
But Mary, who we talked to when we made the suggestion that I think we were talking the trust. Someone should be, from us, should be in their meeting, and someone from them, that group should come on with our meeting. And
It's-
that was not well received, right?
No, because the trust is set up in trust documents, and you're not gonna wanna change the trust documents to change the composition of the trust. I mean, I
Well,
think one of our members.
I'm talking about members. I'm just
I think-
talking about a
No,
member
just meeting
switch.
attendance, I think, because I know.
And that's my point, right? You can, if one of us wants to attend a meeting, that's one thing, but to change the composition of the Affordable Housing Trust would be a whole set of legal documents that have to get changed, and I don't think you wanna do that.
Okay,
And that didn't seem to go over very well when it was suggested either.
you know,
I think it's the attendance, though. I mean, when
Yeah.
I walked that property with them, and
Yep.
they were all there,
Yep.
they were awesome, and they were like, I'm like, I don't get it. Like, what's the difference? What are we doing here? Blah,
Right.
blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And they were like, come to our meetings.
Right,
And
and that's the
then-
whole thing. I don't have time to go to their meetings during the week.
they have it during the day though.
Yeah.
That's the hard
Yeah, and I
part.
can do it. They were like, come, and I called the town. I'm like, I mean, it's been a year, right? For me, I've been here since August, just
Mm-hmm.
hanging out. So I'm like, so I'll go to the trust meetings. They're like, yeah, just check the calendar. And then I would call. I'm like, I'm not seeing meetings. They're like, oh no, they're coming. I'm like, okay.
So you
I
should be
have a
able
hard
to,
time attending those. So maybe
you
I
should be
should
able,
try
I don't know
that.
how many they've had, but, recently, but you should be able to go on the calendar, and if not on the calendar, go onto their, town webpage.
Yeah,
And
their
it should tell you
drop-down
when
has
they're-
their dates and when
It
the
should
next one
have,
is.
yeah, it should have like a common, like,
Yeah.
Okay.
every third Wednesday or whatever,
All right. I'll try.
at 11 o'clock in the morning or some
Yeah.
crazy thing.
Should be, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I
So-
talked to the town, and they're like, I don't know, check the calendar. Okay.
yeah, so they should. I just personally can't do that during the
No,
course
no,
of the
no.
day.
Yeah,
But I think that's great. I think having them attend one of ours may or may not be helpful because,
right.
depending on what we're working on at the time, but
But maybe
If-
it's even a reporting out, like if I'm going and
Right.
I'm like the
Yeah.
liaison, seems
Yeah.
a little overcommittal for me at the moment, but say I'm attending, right, maybe they allow like 5 or 10 minutes at the meeting
Yeah, for
where I
public
say,
comment.
okay, this is what we're doing
Yep.
in relation to what you're doing, or this is what I hear you're doing, this is what we're then I'm gonna bring this back to the group and say,
Yeah.
let's work on that, does that sound like what you want? Yeah, that sounds it, or no, blah, blah, blah.
So
Yeah.
does it sound like the next best steps for us are to, one, reach out to Mary, tell her that we've met, tell her that
Yeah.
we're looking to at least have, restart the joint meeting with the trust?
Yeah,
Yeah,
And then at some point, have a meeting with selectmen so that we can clarify our charge.
yeah.
I do think maybe that should be after the trust meeting though, just because if we get some input from the trust on what they're doing, could get a sense for how we can assist that and then make some recommendations maybe.
Yeah, I think we should pull some of the housing committee charters though, and
Yeah.
at the same time, because otherwise we're going, well, for me, I'd be going in blind to be
Yeah.
like, to the trust, to be like, what do you want us to do? And I don't really want that to be
Mhm.
like
I don't
some other
disagree.
group saying this is what you should do, when
Right.
there's no buy-in and there's no selectmen involved, so it's like, in your ideal world, what would it look like?
Right.
This is our ideal world,
Mhm.
let's go see what the selectmen
Yeah.
think, so.
Yeah, good idea.
So, yeah, so we'll try and do that with the trust, and, well, I'll send that to Mary, meet with selectmen, report out findings with the trust meeting, and then ask the selectmen, you know, this is what we decided that
Yeah,
our role is. Do you agree, disagree, you know? Because we do report to them, so.
Well, they should be telling us what our charge is, we should.
so we have a
coming up
charge,
with
it
it.
just doesn't say anything
Doesn't say
anymore
anything.
because we don't have anything to do. We have nothing, no projects coming to us.
What do you mean?
Right, it was,
So it says like what we're supposed to do?
but it was pre-housing authority. It was pre-housing, affordable housing trust.
Oh, okay.
So,
So nothing's been updated since they created that?
No,
So we have to have that. I mean,
Right.
that's not
Right.
something we make up.
no,
I mean, we
agreed.
don't work for ourselves.
Right.
We
Agreed.
work for the town.
So we had started that before the trust. We had started looking for updates before the trust was even formed, and then it never really went anywhere.
So how long has the trust been in place?
we're over 2 years now, aren't we, Mary?
We voted money for them in 17. I think they finally got started, I want to say fall of 19 is probably when they originally got chartered. By the time they got CPC money, by the time trust documents were drafted and approved, and they kind of got boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So all the money goes to them? I
So,
remember we had the cell tower money, we would use that.
the cell tower money, I do believe goes to them now.
Okay.
And they come to CPC annually and ask for a bucket of money. So
And do we have money?
we do not really have a budget, we do not really have money.
So we would need money.
Yes, and that's been the other thing, we had no staff person, we had no budget, we had no, really anything, we were always relying on kind of administration to, so we had nothing to work with.
So
Right.
interesting.
It really felt more like this committee might get, personally, I felt that this committee was probably gonna get dissolved and then,
Yeah, that's kind of what it sounded like.
and then recreated in another shape or form
Right.
to kind of complement the housing trust.
Yeah,
And then that kind of never happened.
yeah, which is basically what still needs to happen.
Right.
But except the dissolving and recreating it. It's
Right.
like, let's just recreate it, like, what do you
Exactly.
want, what are we supposed to do?
Exactly.
Right.
But yeah, if there's nothing to do and there's no money and there's no
Right.
tie-in and there's no working
Right.
together, then there is nothing to do.
The last
And
thing that happened was this, that I remember, we commented on, pre-trust, we commented on something for Habitat for Humanity. And then post-trust, we were approached and asked to talk about, I'm trying to remember if it was Chloe's Path, it was a Chris Wise project.
That's right, yeah,
And-
I remember that.
And we we were asked to take a vote and we had a discussion and it was premature because there was nothing filed, but we were asked to take a vote anyway.
Yeah,
And then the selectmen asked us to rescind the tentative vote that we took because it was tentative. There was no final application, and that was my original argument on why are
Right.
we taking a vote on something that isn't even
Yeah,
final yet, you know?
exactly, yeah.
So that was the last thing that we really commented on, and then we had to rescind our comments anyway.
Okay,
So,
it's interesting.
yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I'm like confused, so I'm just trying to catch up. So like, does Chatham, for example, have a housing trust, a housing committee, and a housing advocate?
they don't have I don't think they have an advocate.
Okay.
Do you, Mary?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I just kind of
Brewster and
wondering how this
Yarmouth both
works
do.
for- Okay,
Yeah.
be interesting to see like how this model works for them,
Yeah,
So,
especially with like.
that's the
everything
other
they're doing
thing
in
I put down for
Brewster.
myself is to like really reach out to them and say, if, you know, what is the role of the housing committee? And get specifics and, you know, are they doing social media? How are they doing? Are they marketing to projects that the trust are putting out, et cetera. But, I mean, Chatham, they don't even have any more land left right? Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah,
I
everything
don't
keeps
know.
getting voted down.
right.
Brewster would be an interesting study because
Brewster
they've
is
got
interesting.
so much
So
that
they've
they're
been,
doing.
they've been
and-
very active lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Right.
now with that property they just bought,
Right.
the 6A, the
Right.
whole Secans
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
Plus they're just booming. I mean, I just keep hearing about more and more stuff that they're
And
doing.
that was the thing, right? They had a housing coordinator on site that was part-time, and they had her, I think before their trust even got up and running, and I think their trust took a different tact. So one of the things that we have asked at CPC of the trust, when they come in for funding, is what's your budget and what's your plan? Like, and some of it is, some of the responses back were, we don't really know yet, right? And it's, don't want to commit to doing X when you might need your money to do Y,
Yeah.
which I totally understand.
It's a weird role
Yeah.
that they have, because they really can't tell you until something comes up.
Yeah.
But they can decide if they want to have a buy-down program, which,
Oh, I
or
know
they
what you're
can
saying,
decide if
yeah.
they want to look towards developing rentals versus single-family homes, and how much they think they would be dedicating towards marketing
Right.
versus how much would they be dedicating towards, engineering costs on the average project.
Right,
Even
right.
if it's percentages of total cost, something like that can be helpful. Like when we're looking at numbers. So I sit on CPC as the planning board representative. Joe sits on as the housing person. So like we have these questions every year when the CPC requests come in, and I'm a fan of giving the trust money because we want them to spend it, right?
Definitely.
Because housing doesn't happen if they don't spend the housing money.
Definitely.
But it's nice
So-
that they give you just a span of what they want to do. It's Mary's thing, like a buy-down program, just something. You know
Right.
what I
But
mean?
some of those questions are the things that our colleagues come up with every year.
Yes.
That concern some of my colleagues on CPC more than it does me, because I'm trusting them that they're going to put together a project and they're going to use the money, and we want them to spend the money.
Yes.
And if we want them to spend the money, we have to continue to fund them so that they continue to have money to spend. And it's a year delay every time. So, if you skip a year, they're going to be short money for a 12-month period. And I don't know that everybody appreciates that fully, but
Right.
so those are the kinds of things that we've talked about at CPC every year. And I think during COVID, the trust really stalled a little bit. They did things, but they didn't, put big plans together.
Yeah.
So now they're kind of back up and working on things. So, with the walkthrough that
Yeah.
you participated in, and some of the other land that they now have that they're doing surveys on, and they can evaluate to decide whether it's
Yeah.
They got like
You know,
7
something to be
parcels.
developed.
Yeah. I mean, they've got it. Like.
It just depends on what's what and what's not,
Right.
right. So hopefully things will start percolating,
Sure. so to speak.
But
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see like what's the housing, obviously like all these questions, and then what's the charge for the housing housing, what are they called, advocate?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Advocate. Like what are they supposed to, did they hire him yet, or?
No. Not as far as I know.
Haven't heard anything.
It was still listed, but, so housing advocate and what they do. Does the housing authority still come to these meetings or no?
No. I
No.
don't think they've been to one since I've been on.
Do they go to the trust, or where do they go? Because that was a good thing too, we were trying to PR it, is be like, oh, we got, Section 8s are out, we can, advertise that.
I don't know that, I don't know that the housing authority has been attending. Maybe,
I think the guy we used to work with retired, so I don't know who took his place, but.
so
He was there every
John
meeting.
retired, yes.
Yeah, John, he was at every meeting.
And, but the
of ours.
new chair is,
Tracy.
no, the new
Oh,
chair.
the chair.
our colleague on CPC,
I-
Elizabeth Harder,
Elizabeth Harding.
is the new chair of,
Yeah.
of the Housing Authority. So I don't know whether she's been attending all the trust meetings. I think she was at one point, but I'm not sure whether she is
Yeah.
currently.
What's a chair versus John, was John the chair?
No, John was the executive director.
Okay,
So he retired.
yeah.
He was the employee and the staff, and now it's Tammy? No. Who's over
The
at the house?
executive
Yeah.
at Chatham?
No, in Chatham and Harwich.
Tracy Cannon.
Tracy Cannon.
She's Chatham and Harwich?
Yes. So she replaced John. She was, I think, running the rental program
She was.
when John was there, and I think she was promoted
Yeah.
to executive director when he retired.
Yeah, I'd be interested to talk to her too.
So like when they came to CPC not this past year, is it 2 years ago? 2 years ago or 3 years ago? And we gave them some
Money.
funding,
Mhm.
but they could only handle so much. So the way the Harwich Housing Authority worked, if I'm correct in my recollection, was that they want funding for a full 3 years for somebody, so that when when they run out of funding, then they'll come back and ask for more.
Oh, okay.
So they don't come every year and ask for funding.
Okay.
They want to know that they have a full 3 years worth of funding for
That's right.
their applicants, so that,
So they don't have to do it every year, and
Yeah.
if their financial situation is still the same, they can re-up again.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
so she wants to know that she has a full 3 years of funding for them, so that she's committed to them for the 3 years, because I think they can only be in that rental program once. I think it's supposed to act as a stopgap to getting to Section 8 or getting
Yeah.
Oh,
to other housing. So
Yeah.
it's a short-term 2 or 3 year program, and
Oh.
you're in and then you're out.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, so I have some notes here. I know what I want to do, or have to do.
Yep.
Which one are you doing? I'll take
So I'm gonna reach out to Mary, let her know what we talked about tonight.
Okay. This is
We-
Joe.
And let her know that we want to do a restart of a meeting with the trust and the housing trust. After that meeting, Mary has a good point. We'll have a much better handle on what both our thoughts are on roles, and then meet with the selectmen and tell them what we came up with. And Claudia, I'm also going to check with the other housing committees, particularly Brewster and Yarmouth, and just get real specifics on what the housing committees do for those towns.
Okay.
As well, I can do Chatham too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want you to have to do everything, but I'm circling the stuff you're doing. I'll find out when the housing trust meetings are.
Yeah.
And then see if I can start attending those. I don't know what they're doing and what they do for the summer. And then, I guess I'll pull the job description on the housing advocate just to see what
okay, that'd be
they're
great.
doing. So I'm doing mine in squares and Joe in circles. Okay, so I'll do that and that. When I meet with Beth, but I think it's more of a Cindy, is the question about need.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's something I'll ask, just ask around, like what's been done.
And I can reach out to both administration and to Emily, the town clerk, about possibly doing an insert in the census for next year.
Okay.
Oh, that'd be great.
You
Okay.
know, so I can take care of that piece and see question funding and what the cost would be. So.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
really old school. I mean, I did that.
No, but it's
whatever,
it's
long
true.
time
It's
ago.
something that everybody they have to fill it out. They have to return it. So
It was good info because we didn't have any housing documents, so we built the whole housing plan
mhm.
with that. So.
Yeah, and our housing plan is probably up for renewal
It
because
is.
it was
16.
Oh yeah, that was one
2016.
thing we got charged with. I don't think anybody else wanted to do it, so I was like, give it to the
I-
housing
I-
committee.
Yeah, I find that might come down to our space
it
too.
probably will.
Yeah.
But back in 2016, I think it was 22 units a year, and unfortunately, we're nowhere near there. So
Well, yeah, we also talked about hiring a consultant to help with the plan, because it's
Yeah.
pretty comprehensive, and then,
I think we did last time, we had
Yeah.
somebody like externally managing it.
There was. And I think the town planner at the time was involved because it was right after Charlene had left, or not Charlene, David Spitz had retired, and
Oh, yeah.
Ally Sabatino had come on board, because she was here when we approved the housing production plan, because she was also here when we approved the open space and recreation plan. I think she had done both of those with help, and then she moved on to Chatham, so.
okay, so the next Mondays, Mary, are July 18th or the 25th?
The 18th, I am not available.
Okay, 25th?
Should be fine.
I think that gives us enough time.
Yeah, I'm good with the 25th.
5:30 still work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we
Okay.
allowed to talk to each other? Like, are we allowed to ask Cindy in the meantime?
That's a great question.
Hey, can you find some stuff out or no?
So what we can't do is serial deliberation. Like, we shouldn't be discussing ideas, but if you need information for something, then I think you could do it. We also don't have an
Like to say, Cindy, our next meeting, like if we send a thing out.
Generic stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
did you send something out that says our next meeting is this date and we're gonna be discussing
Right, here's the agenda.
what's the need, if anybody, like Cindy,
Yeah.
if you have anything, please bring it.
Yeah, and
that
that's
kind of
fine.
thing.
Yeah.
It's more that when we're deliberating things that we don't want to deliberate outside the meeting room.
Yeah, no,
It's kind of our restriction, right? So,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so should we do a motion to close?
I move to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
All right,
All right.
alright, thanks a lot.
thank you.
I know I had a ton of questions,
No,
It's been a while.
I'm thrilled you're back on. I didn't realize you were a back on board person. That's wonderful. That's like,
She's been waiting for a
I'm the-
meeting to happen.
I know, I'm the novice in half of this stuff. I sit
Oh,
here and I
no,
show
I'm
up.